the monthly giveaway that we're going to start doing starting in the month of April. We'll start giving away at the month of May, at the month, that's that April, at the month of October. So at the end of October, the end of November, and the end of December, we're going to start giving away prizes, right? And so the way that you actually become eligible for those prizes, you got to go to this website, right? www.totalmindsetshift.com. Right. Once you go to that website, you just click on member and then just go ahead and register. It's free. Just register to become a member. That way, now you are able to submit the questions that you want us to ask on those months. Now, what I've done is I've taken the liberty to kind of build out, and I'm gonna try to keep these guys as close to the schedule as possible, right? But kind of build out what the weekly conversation is going to be. So for the month of October, just look at what conversation we're going to be having that first week, and then just kind of consider the questions that you want to ask, and then just submit them. And then what we will do, we will look at these questions collectively and select the best questions. Those people whose questions we ask will actually be placed into a randomized drawing, right? We're not going to do it. We're going to let the computer generated system do it. And then at the end of that month, those people will actually be selected for the prize. So again, go to www.totalmindsetshift.com and register on that website and become a member. And the only reason we're doing that, number one, is so that we can have a easy way to understand who submitted what questions. Okay. Now, here we go for today's conversation. The topic is the role of faith and prayer in mental health and coping with darkness. Now, I want to make sure that I say this beforehand as a disclaimer. This is not us telling anybody what they should be doing. This is just us speaking from the perspective of our understanding and possibly experiences. So, again, if this does not subscribe to you, that's okay. Just look at it from the perspective of meditation, whatever that looks like. But I also want to add in conjunction with this the understanding of darkness. And I mentioned this previously. So just the idea of darkness, I tend to look at darkness as a pre-depressive state. So the state where you're constantly ruminating, thinking about negative thoughts, constantly. I mean, just going over and over and over again. And so when it comes down to the role of faith and prayer in mental health and coping with darkness, the problem can possibly be in situations where some people don't necessarily believe that they should be praying or that they should pray. They don't necessarily know how to pray. They haven't been raised up in an environment to where prayer and meditation was a thing. You may get involved with an individual who actually believe in something other than. That's a personal decision, or you may have been participating in prayer and meditative practices and it has not worked for you based upon your understanding. So in my opinion, these are some of the concerns and issues that people go through. Lastly, I mean, let's just be honest, it may be, and I'm not saying that it is, it may not have been perceived or portrayed as prayer being a masculine thing. So some men may feel that prayer is not something that they should do. So again, that's one of the reasons why we've created the Empowering Perspective membership program, because we kind of construct a way, right? A way to do a thing, a way to actually do things to where, as it translates into your personal life, you have a blueprint for execution, right? And then we kind of help you to manage those emotions as you start to get towards the process. So, before we get started knee deep in this question, gentlemen, I have a question for you. Since this is Suicide Prevention Month, and I think the week was from the 10th to the 16th, but since this is Observation Month, how would you describe both faith and prayer, and what are their correlation to mental health and coping with darkness?
I'll jump on the grenade. Um, I think, well, first of all, faith and prayer are different. I think they work together. I think, when it comes to faith, that's more of a belief, and prayer is an action. So, and I think in combination, when you have prayer or you spend time praying or meditating, whatever word you want to use, and you believe in some sort of higher, I think just having a certain higher or deity or whatever you want to call it, someone to believe in, having a set of principles to believe in, kind of can create a foundation for clarity and different things like that in your life, which, you know, I think that helps with the overall mental health, because I think when people have something they believe in or something they can trust in, I think it just makes them overall feel better. And I think sometimes that's where the faith comes in. And I think when it comes to mental health, it helps with your mental health if you can kind of come back to center, if you would. And it helps deal with a lot of the different things that you may be going on in your life on a day-to-day basis, relationships, all of those different things like that, and then back the faith and the prayer up with a set of principles, then I think it's a great combination or a great tool that you can use to help deal and cope with darkness or whatever you may be going through in your life.
Um, I I'll piggyback. So from the aspect of what I believe, right? Because we're speaking from our personal perspectives, right? When you're dealing with any issue, I believe any issue can blow up to a point to where it affects your current mental well-being, right? Uh, where faith and prayer lies into the matter is, and I'll start with prayer. Prayer is an avenue that can be used to release it off of your shoulder, right? And put it on the shoulder of the Most High God. Uh, and the faith is knowing that you can wait in anticipation that He is going to work the matter out, right? Sometimes it may not be, we always say as a cliche, but it may not be the way you like it, but it will be for your good, right? For all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and called according to His purpose. And so, if that's what I believe, uh, I have no business being worried or anxious about a thing, because I should be operating in a way to where I release those things onto Him.
I'll have to piggyback off of Unc. Prayer is the action, faith is the belief. I think a big part of that nobody really touches on is what Tuame said. Like, sometimes you'll get what you want, but it might not look like what you want it to look like, but it'll still be what you want. And I think that's something that we have to let go of too, like the control of it. Because that can lead to a lot of different things too. Because when you try to control everything, the I've learned that the more you try to control everything, the more things spiral out of control. But
Yeah, I
back
think
to
it's a
the original.
difference.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I think it's a difference between um trying to control something and being in control.
Are you speaking like
I'm
the
agreeing with
difference?
you
Yeah,
because I
but
think
to
a
go
lot of
deep,
people. Go ahead.
but to go deeper, you're right. There's a difference between me being in control of myself and me trying to control outside matters. You understand what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So I agree with you, most definitely.
I think we all know prayer is pretty much a request, whether audible or internal. It's a request, either for assistance, either for help with something. Sometimes you pray for others that they get help, and your faith is attached to that because that's your belief system, whatever it may be. Your belief system says that whomever your God is, whomever your higher power is, has the power to do something about this situation that I don't have control over. And if I want something, if I want control, if I want anything in the matter, now I ask for that. But like these gentlemen said, it may not come how I say. I may want it to happen this way, but the higher power say, no, they got to go through that thing. No, you got to go through that thing because there's a lesson in it for you. And sometimes we try to pray ourselves away from the lesson so that we won't get we don't want the burden of it. We just want the glory of being over it.
So can I don't want to. I agree with you. I also think that, like, for me, prayer is more than just asking. Like, for me, my prayer life is more of a conversation. It's more of a building of the relationship. So every time I pray, I'm not necessarily asking, even for me or for sometime anybody else. Sometimes I'm just going to have a conversation. And just like on here, when we come together on Friday nights to have a conversation, revelation can come out of the conversation. So sometimes I just go just to have a conversation without even having my hand out. Sometimes I'm going with appreciation. Sometimes I'm going with a thank you. And then during that course of that conversation, I do a lot of times get revelation, even though that's not my intent. You know what I'm saying? So
I agree wholeheartedly because
okay.
there are more than one part, just the asking part. Like you said, I agree. Because you have to show adoration towards whomever it is that you serve, whomever it is that you worship and whatnot. And you have to show a sign of thanksgiving, a sign of, thankfulness. So yeah, there are more than one part, multiple parts of
Yeah, I agree. That was actually part of my that was going to be part of my description actually. Prayer is definitely a conversation. It's just like you don't necessarily want your kids coming to you only when they have requesting something, only when they want something, right? It's the exact same thing. Prayer is more of a conversation that I have with my father. Um, but the faith piece I think is huge, and I would tell you for me growing up. I never really had anybody to describe it, explain it, help me to better understand it. And so for me, it was very important for me to understand it for years to come. Faith is the belief and expectation that you have in something happening. Ideally, what we should be doing is having the faith and having the hope and the expectation in what the Most High has promised us. So when you look at what the Most High has promised you, that's the thing that you are hoping to come to pass. Therefore, faith is the linkage between me and that thing that He said, and it keeps me motivated and excited for His outcome. That's for me is where the correlation exists. Because if I am, like, case in point, I know what he says, but I am so focused on my circumstance, I am so focused on what's going on in my situation. I'm focused on how I feel about my situation. I'm focused on how people perceive me in that situation. I keep my focus here, but I lose focus on what he said and lose focus on him. Then my faith has wavered, because I'm supposed to keep my eye and my attention on him at all time, regardless of what goes on around me. So the conversation that I have with him also is undergirded by the faith that I have in what he said and what he promised. Therefore, mentally, I am no longer focused on everything that's done in my situation, because, like Roland just said in the chat, his will be done. That's my focus. I thought Chris was about to say something, so I want to pause for a second.
There's all of that. And then there's this prayer that I have prayed on many occasions. All right, man, look, you said if I do these things, you got me. And you said I can do anything because you dwell within me. So I got the power to do whatever I want. Guide me. Simple request. Guide me. And then
Go ahead, man.
I go off on a tangent for a little bit, and then I just wind up falling asleep.
See, I think when we make it that simplistic, that I think when we read scripture and or whatever, when we think about faith and prayer together, it's always when it's his will, that means I'm doing what he said. So we may think, like the other day, somebody was talking about Aaron Rodgers, saying that he's been manifesting, saying that he's going to end up in the Super Bowl. And now he 4 plays in, he out for the year.
Are you serious?
Yeah. 4 plays in, he out for the year.
Wow.
And they talking about, well, where is his this and where is his that? It's his objective says he was going to be in the Super Bowl. See, sometimes we can say, well, I want this job, I pray for this job and all this other stuff. And we say it and we have faith in it. That may not be the job that he wants you to have. You want that job, but it may not. See, and simply because we want these things, sometimes we think that, okay, I asked for it and I've been faithful in trying to get it. I've done the right things. May not be where he wants you. So we have to be able to accept his will.
But you see what I've learned, though? But you see what I've learned when I asked that question, and I just asked, and when I request that, and I just sit in it, and I said, and I just sit in it, things will just start coming to me. You understand what I'm saying? So that's a hard thing to do, though. It is very, very hard to be alone with your own thoughts, especially when you down the way that you down. As far as the question is being asked, it is extremely difficult. Seriously.
See, so when you start getting into that conversation and when we start talking about his will, I preference this anytime we get into a conversation like this. I cannot pray a prayer in his will if I don't know his will. Right? Whatever the God, the deity, whatever you believe in, you have to know about a thing before you can depend on a thing, right? And in the sense of those of us who believe in the scriptures, you can't know the will without knowing the word, right? So where faith comes in while you are in the growing and learning process and stage is knowing that his will is sovereign and that he is just, right? And so sometimes faith doesn't have to come with even getting an answer. Sometimes it comes with just leaving it on him and allowing it to work out. Because sometimes the lesson, you talked about lessons earlier, Road. Sometimes the lesson is just learning how to go through this situation. It ain't got to be a lesson about writing a book. It ain't got to be a lesson about doing this or doing that. It ain't got to be a lesson about raising your kids. Sometimes the lesson is to endure. And then because somebody might need to see that endurance, or you might need to share that, how you get through with someone else. And when you can accept that sometimes the lesson is not a lesson that I can sensationalize. It just is what it is. And I have to learn how to allow it to work out its perfect. Let patience work its perfect work. It works together sometimes when you let things play out. It's like when you have this, and I'm not relating God to the stomach virus, but I am in a sense. Sometimes we try to chug down Pepto-Bismol, we try to do all this other stuff. Sometimes you just gotta let it run its course, and then get up in the morning and feel better. And in my case, be about 1.5 pounds lighter, and be happy, right? That you lost some weight. But it worked out for my good. Let's just throw a little light on there.
I'm gonna need you to get that camera to work out for our good, because you look like the Buddha sitting there right now. I know, right?
I like something Chris said. Chris said he said guide me, right? But I think there's 2 parts of that. I think one part of that is the sitting back and being open and waiting for the information to come, which what Chris was talking about. And I think the other part of that is the action part and actually doing your part and actually following. Because a lot of times we're asking for guidance for information that we already have. We just not walking in the information that we already know. So not you specifically, but there's the other part of that, not in different situations where sometimes we just have to follow because he's already guiding us as it is. A lot of
So,
times we just not listening, or there's too much going on that we're not paying attention.
so
Or
Roland, I
you
know
still living in that piece of darkness and you think that the idea in your head is too big for you when the idea is in your head. If the idea is in your head, then it is possible. You understand what I'm saying?
yeah. Let me jump in real quick. Roland, I know you're about to say something. I want you to put a pin that I'm going to come back to it here in a second. Unc, you said something that I want us to kind of unpack because um, you pretty much said faith without deed is dead, right? So, how do I, as a person who is in that space of pre depression, darkness, whatever that looks like, how do I get off my backside and do something that equates to what I have faith in? Like, I'm not trying to, make it, more than what it really is, but like if for a person who is struggling in that mental space, and it's not just for you, Uncle, it's for everybody, right? How do I do that? How do I get the energy to do that?
You get to a point where you are absolutely sick of your circumstances. You are completely tired of it. You understand that this is not where you are supposed to be. You know you need to be doing better. What is wrong with you? Why are you here? You get so sick of it, and then you just decide, I'm about to get up and do something. I don't think that anybody can make somebody do something. They may be able to put a spark in your brain, but your situation, if we're talking this right here, your situation has to be to a point where it's either change or die. Seriously, it's either change or die. Change so you can live a better life, or stay where you are and just exist. There's an internal civil war that we fight. You understand what I'm saying? That's why the consistency piece is always choppy in the beginning, because it's scary. But you have to get to a point where you are sick of what you're going through and you like, I gotta change.
Oh, I thought Uncle was about to answer. I I kind of sort of agree with where Chris is about the change part that is within you, but I think that when you're in that state where the rubber got to hit the road, you have to prove that you actually know who you praying to. Because sometimes people say, "Well, I know God," and you just know who your grandma told you he was because he was with her in her life, and you know how other people were blessed, and he did this and he did that, and people have superficial knowledge. But now the rubber got to hit the road to where it's like, man, hold up, I got to sit myself still because nobody else got it gonna help me in this thing. Somebody can tell you something and you say, okay, good, that's cool. But unless I'm in it and I'm trying to say I'm dependent on you for something, I gotta know I can depend on you. That means I gotta spend some time with you. I gotta gain a self knowledge of you because I can't go off of other people's experiences now. Now it's time for me to say, hey, I know you for myself. And now time is where I can experience you in this so I can have my own testimony.
I agree with you, but I when I spoke about that, I wasn't necessarily speaking of prayer being what it is in the religious sense, because from the teachings that I've had and the people that I've learned from multiple cultures who believe in the same thing, basically, they say just writing something down is a prayer. You understand what I'm saying? Just putting it out there is a prayer. So that's what I meant when I said you have to get to a point where you know you need to change or you're gonna die. Sometimes it's not even God that's involved in that. You just know that you need to do something different. And then later on, that's when the divine creator or the universe or whatever you decide you're going to dive into might just manifest. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you'll know where you're going when you're doing that. So I agree with you on the religious aspect of it, but I was talking outside of that, just knowing that you need to change. You understand what I'm
Right.
saying?
I
Just
mentioned what
knowing
you
it.
said. I mentioned what you said, but I was addressing what he said about the darkness. What the question?
Right.
Right. I'm with you because until you feel it's either you gonna feel so much pressure to where you have to move or something else is going to move you out of that situation.
Right, right.
And I'm just speaking in the aspect of the quote that we use to preference this question. Faith without works is dead. I love it because I know I got to go back to what is written. James uses a parable in there of the concept of not just your faith having your work. That's cool, but he's also talking from another aspect because he uses a parable saying if someone is hungry and you walk past them and say go in peace and be made whole, and not giving them the things, or not at least helping them get it, but not giving them the thing in which they need, then of what good is that, right? So sometimes your faith can help me, right? Because in my time of darkness, why can't I not go lean on those around me who also are of the same faith? Because sometimes that's where I can get my encouragement. Sometimes what I need is in my brother, right? So I guess in that aspect too, where the works rely on both parties. Sometimes I have to, you know, uh, I'm gonna use Chris's word, take my ego and my pride away from it, and call Roland and say, "Hey, bro, I just need some gas to get me till tomorrow, man. I ain't got no gas, but I get paid in the morning. I'll drop it back." Sometimes I just got to get out that ego, because that's a dark place when you don't know how if your car gonna shut off or not halfway to work, and how you gonna get there. You know what I'm saying? So, and hopefully your money management is a little better than that. But hey, but sometimes, so when we talk about it, the works also has to deal with those that you have around you, that's in your circle. I need you. If you have faith with me, I'm going to share with you where my dark place is. But can you help me out there? Because yeah, we say in church, God is good all the time, but he was good enough also to give me brothers, to give me family, give me people, give me a circle.
I think, when you're in that funk, when you're in that dark place, I think it does come down to that person have to realize that they need change in their life. You know what I mean? And sometimes it requires people to hit rock bottom before they mention it, before they get there. Sometimes it's an accident. Sometimes it's a death in the family. You know what I mean? So there's all these different things. Sometimes you could just be tired of your situations, or some people just, like Twami said, some people just come to it just, through a friend. Sometimes getting exposure or getting the information can help people come out of it, because sometimes people are in a dark place, but they don't even know why they're in that dark place. You know what I mean? And sometimes they can't go anywhere because they don't understand that they're there, and they just don't know how to get out. And I think for one thing, the main thing is like what Chris and Roland said is that they have to you have to want it. You know what I mean? Like, you can't want it for anybody. That person have to come to a realization in their life that they want change. That's my 2 cents on it.
And here's the part that sucks. They have to take full accountability and full responsibility for it, whether it was direct or indirect. Everything that happens in your life is your fault. That's the part that sucks. But don't nobody talk about that.
And some of it might not even be your fault. It could be just the hand that you were dealt. You know what I mean?
That's why I said
Muted
directly,
coach.
or indirectly. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like, I'm still there. You understand what I'm saying? Why did I let this happen? What was I thinking? What was I doing? Why did I not finish this? What stopped me? You understand what I'm saying? It's so many things you got to just go through. Like, self accountability is trash, but it's worth it.
Yeah, I'm liking pretty much what everybody's saying. I think everybody here that's listening to this and on the panel and so forth and so on, I think we pretty much know that if you fail to learn the spiritual lesson that you're supposed to learn at any given moment in time, then it's going to recycle back and you're going to have to learn it. It's come without a doubt. And if you don't make the decision to learn it, life will catch up with you and life will teach you a much harder lesson en route. I think that's one of the biggest pieces when it comes down to being in that dark space because I don't believe, and this is I'm not talking all. I want to start. I want to say that I try to avoid all statements because all statements are always wrong, unless it's talking about a law. Um, but in a lot of situations, what you'll find is that the current circumstances based upon a decision that we made at some point in time. In most cases, we make the decision for the outcome that we're experiencing, whether it was actively or passively. Um, And there's nothing wrong with understanding that. There's nothing wrong with admitting that. And to Chris's point, you're going to have to own that. I can't play the blame game. I can't project it on somebody else because that keeps me in that space. Those are the fruits of negative thoughts. So if it's somebody else's fault that did this to me and all these, the man keep holding it. No, those are the wrong kind of thoughts to lean into. I like what I'm hearing here because what you're hearing is a lot of there is a part of it that I need to recognize that is laid before me. And there's a part of it that I need to recognize that is my responsibility to grab hold to that thing. And it's almost like a lifeline that pulls me out of the quicksand that I find myself in. So I love this. I also love the question that, who was it? Ms. Verley, there we go. Ms. Verley McCoy put out. How do you convince someone in darkness and having no faith say that they're atheist? So how do you convince them? And I'm not sure whether she means to convince them to have faith or whatever. How do you help them come out of that space? If they listen, and let's just and help me out if I'm asking this question wrong. How do you convince them that there are better days if they're atheists and you're a believer, or if they don't have any faith or whatever that looks like?
You try to find a way to make it real world, because I've noticed that with a lot of people that don't have a specific religion, they look at everything like real world stuff. So I just basically, I would try to find a way to make it make sense to him without trying to add the religion aspect of it too, so that way he can understand it. Because me doing it in a faith-based way when they don't have a faith will kind of feel like I'm being pushy. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to step on their toes. You understand? But I still want them to get out of to get out of that situation, because they know that they can do better, but they just need somebody to say, do this. You understand what I'm saying? I would just try to take my ego and religion out of it and real world base it, so that way they can get it. And then just take it from there. If they take it, they take it. If they don't, they don't.
Yeah, I don't think you can convince someone, but I think, to Chris's point, if you're going to have a conversation with somebody, you have to break it down and put it in their language. So if they're a non-believer, then they're not going to understand it from a religious or a Christian or a certain point of view anyway. So you can't necessarily come at them with those angles and crosses and different things like that because they just won't get it. So like Chris said, I think you have to come at them on a common ground on something that they can understand, and then have the conversation that way.
I don't think that you have to even bring religion into the conversation
Yep.
once you find out what the situation is and you see if there's a problem, most likely there's a solution. So you don't have to bring faith into that at all. You can talk around faith. You don't have to name any deities, anything like that. But if they have to actually do something to come from up under something, it's on them. I ain't got to say, well, God gonna help you and all that other stuff to make you feel good. I got to say, dude, you got to get off your tail. You got to do this. So if you haven't done this, let's try this. Let's map out a program to where we can uh, subvert the system, and now we can see how to come from up under this thing so that you can be better off. Because when I put the onus on you, you know what you can do and your abilities, and what you can't do and all that other stuff. I'm there to undergird you. And I may be, I'm holding on by faith. you may not. So you may get from under this thing through my faith, or may not. We may be able to get it by our hands.
Or maybe we
Uh,
can even spin the word faith and not put like a religion into it. Just say you need to have the faith in yourself that you can do it. You understand what I'm saying? Maybe we see something in you. You can do it. I have faith in you, not that your faith in whatever creator is going to fix you. You understand what I'm saying? There's different spins of different words that you can use, but even like I said, to Roland's point, religion wouldn't even be a part of the situation. If I know you're not a believer, I'm just going to real world it.
um, I'm kind of I'm kind of with Roland on this one. I was going to respond and say, the mindset coach, right? Coach, which way is he? This way. Where's my camera? There you go. And here's what I mean by saying that, right? Not necessarily you got to give him his number and tell him to pay or to call him or subscribe or whatever. But what I learned about Coach and knowing him, he does a lot of work, and almost everything he says is backed by scripture. But it's rare that you hear him go to scripture to say a thing, because he's speaking to a broad audience, and there are times to where, all right, now how do we apply this to our biblical principles for those who believe, right? And so what does that look like? You know, can we honestly get there if our faith is not backed by word, right? So if your faith is not backed by the scriptures, it's not, then it cannot actually be in you. So when you're speaking, most people that I find most people that say, well, I know this scripture here say this and this scripture here say this, that's because they're trying to pull off of what they can pull out their mind, so they have to quote it. But sometimes it should not sometimes, but it should be a part of you, and you should understand how it applies in life, that you can now begin to speak to people without have to always say Matthew 5:14 or Mark. You sometimes you just have to say, just be patient and let it work itself out. Sometimes, like Roland says, sometimes you give them the advice of what to do is, because you understand these things. So if your perspective is scriptural and you understand how that applies in your life, explain that without having to point. Because here's the thing: if you truly walk in your walk, whatever that walk is, people who know you would know what you stand on and what you believe. Subconsciously, they know what perspective you're coming from. But once you sound as if you're pushing the scripture on them, those who call themselves atheists, by habit, will begin to resist back. So just teach them the thing. Just give it to them. All right. And it'll work themselves out. Now, as they begin to see those same principles in you, maybe their faith will grow.
You know what? That was the nicest thing that anybody said to me all day. I appreciate that, bro. And I want to say this because at one point in time, I wanted to be that person. I wanted to be that person that could quote scripture. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, I'm being honest. I got the microphone. Plenty of you out there who believed that at one point in time. So don't judge me, right? I wanted to be that person that was in a conversation and could, hold my own with scripture. And so I got to the point I got to studying, but then I realized that being able to quote scripture only makes me legal. It doesn't make me righteous. So I got to the point to where I realized, like, I went back and looked at how Christ did it. And then what Christ did, he will always put it back on the people that asked him questions. So it was two types of people. You have those who were questioning him because they wanted to challenge him. And then you had those who needed him. He never asked the ones who needed them anything about, whatever. And then those who challenge him, he always asked them, have you not read? So it's like a different perspective. And so for me, what I thought was more important to learn it, the scripture, to such a degree that you can infuse it with common everyday talk. And so a lot of times, to like his point, I do that all the time. Like I will have a scriptural conversation with a person and they have no idea that that's what I'm talking about, simply because it's totally infused in the conversation. The reason why I like this question is because, first and foremost, the first portion of this question is not my responsibility. I say it all the time. I don't say things to convince anybody. I only say it for them to consider. And if we take that perspective, if we take that approach, then we would not feel accountable for that outcome. That's number one. Another person's decision is not my outcome. Another person's decision does not have my emotions tied around it either. If they accept what I'm saying, great. If they don't accept what I'm saying, great. I move the exact same way, regardless of whatever the answer is. So, first and foremost, I don't convince, I communicate. That's the thing. So, we start there. Second, I want to go back to what I've heard a couple of times so far under this question. This is not a religious conversation. I want to make sure I'm saying that. Religion is totally different than doctrine. Now within the scope, well, let me say it. I'm gonna use Gaddy words from the back chat, right? Religion is different from policy, right? The Bible is a book of policy. That's what it is. It is laws, right? This book of the law, it is policy. Therefore, because it is policy, it is government. It teaches you how to govern yourself. The issue is that we've tried to take the book of the government and dumb it down. And I hate to use that term, so don't judge me for it. I'm just, I'm just using it for a suggestion, a thought, metaphor. We try to take the book, which is the book of his thoughts, and dumb it down into religion. Why? Because we like to segregate. Every time you turn around, we're trying to segregate. We fought to get out of segregation just so that we can segregate. It makes no sense to me, right? So we dumb the book down to segregation. And then once we get the segregation, then we can look at each other and get back to judging one another. That's what we do. That's really what humanity likes to do. I don't know why it makes no sense. But the Bible itself is a book of government. It teaches you how to govern yourself. Here's the best part about this whole conversation. An atheist believes something. That's it. I believe in him. Atheists believe he doesn't exist. That's fine. He has a belief system. So that means that the book actually works. It still works. He just don't believe in him. But so depending upon the relationship that I have with this person, I may even challenge them. I may turn it into a game. There's a number of different ways to do this, but it's all dependent upon the relationship that you have with that person. If you have a relationship with that person, that gives me a little latitude to do some things. And I can give, especially if it's person like, I'm gonna use Roland for an example. I know he believes. I know he don't necessarily stay in dark spaces. And when he does, I always issue him a challenge, right? But I'm gonna use him because if he was in that space, I would just challenge him because I know he's very competitive, right? So that's kind of like what I'm talking about. If it's somebody else, I would just kind of talk to them and find out where they are just to get their perspective, their side of the story, their understanding of where they are, so forth and so on. And then I may ask them another question that's totally opposite of what they just shared with me. Well, what would happen if this didn't exist? So now having them to think into it makes them look at another side of the coin. Too many times what we tend to do is we want to go down the exact same road with the other person. And that's not good. That's not healthy. Yeah, I'm sorry that's happening in your life. And I knew that person wasn't no good to start off with. No, that's the wrong conversation to have with it. If you want to have a pity party, don't call me. I'm not that person. I'm sorry. It just won't work out. But anyway, that's just my perspective on that. I'm greatly appreciate everybody's comments, and yeah, I love I love the fact that you asked that question, Ms. McCoy. Great question, and I appreciate you guys' answer. So, getting back to the scenario, because that's kind of like where we started one time and we got away from it, so we're going back to the scenario. So the scenario for this particular conversation here is about the mental health tensions between Maya and Marcus. It always seemed like it's somebody named Maya. So that said, Maya and Marcus are a young couple in their 20s living in a mid-sized city. They've been married for 3 years. Maya is a nurse, while Marcus works as an IT consultant. Both have demanding careers and they share a deep commitment to community service. Recently, Marcus has been feeling overwhelmed and stressed at work due to an important project. Maya is emotionally drained by the increasing demands and emotional toll of her job in healthcare. The strain has started to affect their emotional well being and their relationship. One evening, Maya suggests that they should consider incorporating more faith based practices like prayer and spiritual meditation into their daily routine to cope with their stress. Marcus, however, is resistant to the idea. He feels that they should focus on more conventional coping mechanisms, such as exercise and professional counseling, instead of what he considers to be spiritual situations. Maya feels that Marcus' resistance is putting a barrier between them, affecting not just their emotional health, but also the spiritual harmony on their home. Marcus feels misunderstood and believes Maya is dismissing the efficacy of non spiritual coping mechanisms. So here we have it, two young people. And trust me, you guys were all young at one point in time. So, you guys can reflect back to that area, to that era. Two young people struggling trying to make this relationship work, married for 3 years. And married for 3 years, and they have differences in the way that they do things. So that's kind of like what this is all about. So that said, we're going to dive into the first question as this question keeps rolling. The first question is in the context of Maya's. I'm sorry, in the context of Maya's inclination towards faith-based practices. In the context of Maya's inclination towards faith-based practices. We got some technical difficulties today. In the context of Maya's inclination toward faith-based practices and Marcus's resistance in favor of secular methods, how might these divergent approaches to mental health not only create internal tension within their relationship, but also have external ramifications?
I think internally, what you can do is you can start, like Marcus was feeling, kind of feeling, kind of a certain way, maybe like he's not heard, or what he thinks is not understood. And I think that can sometimes spill over into arguments and disagreements and different things like that. I think the biggest problem here is this is what I'm looking at. An issue being she's trying to force her system of stress relief on him. I think at the end of the day, it would be okay for him to do it his way and her to do it her way. I think that in a relationship, it's okay to differ in certain situations because we handle things differently. You know what I mean? What may work for me may not work for my wife. Everybody may not be as religious or may not have that relationship. So what you have to do is she has to do what I think works best for her, and that he needs to do what works best for him. And the tension comes because she's trying to get him to do what she wants to do, you know what I mean? Instead of being open to allowing him or wanting him to come to not necessarily the freedom, but do it his way. If something else is working, because at the end of the day, the problem is the stress. They're trying to eliminate stress. You know what I mean? So if he does it his way and she do it her way, at the end of the day, is the stress being relieved? That's my 2 cents.
So what I see here, just going back to the scenario, looking at these contexts, is I'm looking at it as they're both trying to find a way to work into a space that both of them can work together to better their mental health, right? Because I think that they feel as if this is something that's important for them to do together. And so, with that said, when one party feels rejected from the other party, it's almost as if you're rejecting uh, the attempt to strengthen our relationship through this point. And so, one party or the other can end up feeling like, well, you don't really care about this relationship, like I, not even like I care, because sometimes you know, especially if my mental space in my dark places thinking that maybe I don't do enough for the relationship, it can just simply be, hey, you just don't care about this relationship. Why can't we do this together? And because and sometimes it doesn't have to be your way or the highway. Sometimes we need to find a median, right? Hey, and hey, can we at least like twice? If that's the case, can we twice a week? Can we 3 times a week? Can we pray before we leave the house? And then can we can find us, get us some professional help on the outside as well. How do we meet each other in this scenario? So, uh, but it can definitely uh tarnish based upon how we perceive the act or the resistance of each other, the relationship. Externally, in a marriage, I think a lot of time, I think married people they wear their problems on their sleeve, right? And so when I'm focused on how much my spouse don't care about this relationship, I'm not as focused as I need to be on my performance outside. Now I have issues going on here. Uh, Whenever people bring up relationship conversations, I might be, you know, well, you women all think like this, and y'all don't really care about relationships like y'all say y'all do. And now I'm creating tension in my office space because I'm bitter about how I feel things are going on at home. So just as short as I could get, I feel like that's for me externally and internally in that relationship. That's how it can affect.
What you laughing at, Roland?
At Kwame. No, no, but seriously, in this situation, I think we're overlooking. We don't understand that Marcus may have a bad history with the church, a bad history with religion. So they need to have a communication where they can say, "Hey, they need to find out each other's history in said arena so that they can find a way for those two individuals to say, hey, let's navigate this, let's try that, before I just try to dump mine off on you or he try to dump hers off on her. Because if once you start trying to force feed somebody something, there's resistance. So when you find out, hey, what you think about this, and then you can ask those questions and you can get back feedback where you can understand more to why they may defer or why they may want certain other things, because they may have seen this and seen that. Not all experiences, but this is a young couple married 3 years or so. So now you got to say, okay, have some type of dialogue where you can find out what's best for you two, because at the end of the day, it's your relationship and not somebody else's. And I'm of the thought that both outside and inside can work together to heal the issues going on within the marriage.
Well, if I'm reading is the way that it is up on the screen right now, this just sounds petty. I'm sorry. If the object is to relieve stress because we both have a bunch of stuff on our shoulders, why would we fight about how we get it done? You understand what I'm saying? And to Roland's point, yeah, I might not have the greatest relationship with the church. I might have been done foul by people who said that they were following God. Did you ever think of that? Don't get upset about me not wanting to do it that way because this is what happens. But then again, maybe this is a conversation that should have been had a long time ago. You understand what I'm saying? Another side of me wants to say that this is what you get when you send the public relations dude to be with, you know what I'm saying, instead of the dude from the mailroom. You understand what I'm saying? So I kind of look at it from both ways. But the object of the game is supposed to be to relieve stress. And coach says this all the time, man. The most important person in the relationship is the relationship. So if stress is hindering the relationship, let's figure this out. I ain't trying to fight you. Get out my face.
Adding more stress.
Right. Like, what is your problem?
We're adding to the stress. We don't have to agree on how we relieve stress. We do need to agree that stress, and we both do need to agree and come up with a plan to eliminate the stress that we have, though.
Sometimes you are the stress.
Sometimes
I
force
need to
me
get
do
away from
something
you.
stresses me out.
You understand what I'm saying?
And that's why sometimes we need friends that have gone through situations, because he may find a friend his age and they say, hey, just dip. Let's go to the sugar shack. Something that's going to hinder their relationship's growth. When an older person who has gone through some things, they say, hey, that ain't nothing. This is how you do this. Let's walk this thing together. And now he can handle his stress a little better because he sees it from a perspective of somebody who's been there and done that and got the t-shirt.
The Sugar Shack, though? Just saying.
Sugars was...
I got you.
Cleaning it up.
With the chair.
Yeah.
With the chairs.
Yeah. So for me, I don't think this divergence, I don't think the divergence itself, could you put the question back up, please? I don't think the divergence itself is the creation of the situation. I want to make sure that I'm saying that. I don't think the divergent approaches that each of them have created the situation. It's just revealing it. I think, to your points, I think the situation has been there for quite some time and will continue to be there until they actually get to the root cause of the problem. The root cause of the problem isn't the way each one of them want to fix the problem, right? The way that each one of them wants to fix the problem, because this is the simple solution to me, right? Because within, and I go to religious route since that's what most people talking about. Within most religions, there is counseling. It's a simple fix. We can go the non-secular approach, but use some, because I say this all the time, like within the scope of spirituality, there are non-secular approaches to doing things. There's Christian counseling. There's all those other things that exist. I know. Trust me, I know. So that's my point. Like, this isn't the problem. The problem goes on much deeper than this. The problem is at a much deeper and defiant level. But I'm not going to say that Maya is the only concern here. I think the problem exists in both parties. And I agree with what Chris says. It does seem like Maya is pushing what she wants on him based upon how the scenario goes. But I will also say that it doesn't seem like, based upon the scenario, and this is an assumption, I'm just being honest, it doesn't seem like Marcus is considering what she is suggesting either. So I always look at both sides. There's, again, what is said and what is not said. So what is said is that this is what Maya wants to do, but it also says that this is what Marcus wants to do. I'm sorry, I was about to call Marcus Chris. So want to do, but no. Did you consider what she suggested? I'm just going to assume that she suggested it first. Did you consider what she suggested? And in that consideration, what was the outcome? What did you come up with? Was there a reason why you said, I don't want to go that route? Going back to Gaddy's point, I like the fact, I think it was Gaddy or Roland, probably both you guys. I like the fact that you brought up some degree of compromise, right? And I have mixed emotions about the word compromise, but nonetheless, it is a decision that involves the input of both parties. I prefer to call it that, because under the concept of compromise, it means that I'm giving up something, but that's called a sacrifice. It's not necessarily a compromise. And so there are certain words that are injected to where it kind of overtakes another thing. I may sacrifice the totality of what I want for a portion of what I want, and that portion can lead to the greater good of the relationship. So I think within the scope of relationship, everybody needs to understand that sacrifice is necessity. You're supposed to sacrifice yourself daily. And if you do that, you would not experience this problem. But again, they're in their 20s. And not one of us has ever been not guilty of doing this. So that's kind of like what I want to add to that piece there. But great points. Great points. All right. Next question in relation to Maya and Marcus, or Marcus and Maya, however you want to say it. Okay. Given that their divergent coping mechanisms could reflect deeper, perhaps unspoken values each holds, What are the risks if these are not openly discussed?
Confusion and chaos. Like if when the day comes that what you believe or the values that you hold becomes very important to how you live your life, and we don't share those things, there becomes chaos in the home. And what tends to happen is one party tends to dominate the space with what they believe. You know, if I'm not a Christian and all you do is you walk around the house blasting church music, that can start to feel as if it's being pushy, right? Uh, when everything you say to me it seems to sound like church rhetoric because it's now because you're that entwined in it, it starts to feel like you're pushing it. And 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 what if Marcus in response turns around and starts to respond with things that may sound as if it's purposefully anti church or religion or whatever the case may be. Now what we have is chaos. We don't know what is the identity of this family any longer, which brings about more stress, more more drama, more trauma. So we, you know, there has to be that space has to be created to where we can actually begin to speak about these values, and you have to be able to verbalize them to each other so that we can hear what's being said, and at least for now we can focus on the things that we agree on so we can begin to build an identity, uh instead of only focus, because I think most people, when we have conversations about differences of values, all we focus on is the differences. But why can't we build upon the commonality?
I say what transpire from this will be disrespect on both ends, because if she will feel disrespected because he's not going her route because that's her faith and her religion or whatever, and he will feel disrespected because that's what she's pushing on him. So it's like it's a tug of war now of who's in control of what will happen between them both. And I had a situation like that when I first came in the military. I was coming from the environment where I considered myself a Muslim because that's the environment that I grew up in Detroit. So and I was pretty much just a heathen, not eating pork. And I had a girlfriend, and she would always talk this Jesus, Jesus, and I'm gonna pray for you, and this, that, and the other. And I would purposely do things to disrespect her and her belief system because I felt she was pushing it on me. And I think that could happen in this situation, and it could be toxic to the both of them, and it's going to be detrimental to their relationship as a whole. And since they're married, it can end in divorce.
That was where I was going to go. The risk is divorce. You just marry somebody with a completely different belief system than you, and there's nothing that you can do to change him into your belief system. You understand what I'm saying? What can you do with that? And now you're going to walk around here because I believe this and you believe that. You think I'm disrespecting you because I don't believe in what you believe. I'm not dealing with that. No, somebody's going to take a L. Somebody's going to take a L. And the L could be, all right, I know we're from two different mindsets. Maybe let's find a way to cohesively work together, which means somebody's going to lose. It's a competition now and it's unhealthy. Or it's going to be, I lose my wife, I lose my husband because we don't believe in the same thing and we're constantly butting heads and there's no reconciliation. That's the risk. This is another thing that I'm going to write down as far as conversations that I need to have before I think about marrying somebody, because this is something that I would have never thought of.
And I think in this situation, I agree with what you're saying. And I think that the person, if you have faith in something and it's your belief system, Now it's your job to live before that person and show them that, hey, in this situation, show them how you handle it. Show them that you are above this and you're above reproach when it comes to these situations and when it comes to stress in your life. So then they're like, God, Doug, how you handle that? So when they come to you, you have an answer. But as long as you just have the answer, they're going to take that as a negative because, especially with men, we want to seem like we have it all together a majority of the time. And I think that when you live before people where they can come to you and say, man, how did you go through this? Then you can win them over. But you just coming with a bunch of rhetoric and no life, that doesn't work.
Yeah, I think to add to everything that you guys were saying, I think it also causes the relationship to not progress forward because you still have a bunch of it can create more unsolved issues or more unsolved things. So it's like we can't get this problem under control. We can't get this problem under control because, like someone said, the communication piece is not there. You know what I mean? So if these things are not discussed and not only discussed, but there has to be some sort of resolution to the things that arise. You know what I mean? When things start, coming to the surface, and when we start opening up and having these conversations about some of these deep, maybe some deep dark things that may have been in someone's past, they may open up more wounds, and you know what I mean. And not only if they're not being discussed, that means someone may be harboring information, harmful information, not only to themselves, but their mental health and their relationship and all these things. So I think it causes, like I said, a lot of unresolved issues. And then I also think it's important that not only that they open and keep them open and discuss them, open that they have open discussion about it, but that they also try to come up with some sort of solution to the problem. If not, their relationship is not going to grow, it's not going to flourish, and Roland and Chris was about to say, it can potentially end in a divorce.
See, for me, I don't think the divorce is the worst case. I know somebody's not going to agree with me, and I'm okay with that. Um, I don't think the divorce is the worst case scenario. I think the
Nope.
worst case scenario is staying in the relationship and the repetition of this going on over and over and over and over and over again.
Big
To
fact.
me, to me, I would say that's the worst case scenario because it is literally going to yield it's going to yield toxicity in the relationship. It's going to fester. It's going to have festering unresolved emotions, and then eventually it could come to the point to where you are just looking at each other with some extreme discontent. So that's where I would go with the risks, simply because at the end of the day, this is at one point somebody that you quote unquote loved, and now it's the person that you resent simply because you couldn't be adult enough to have a conversation.
And then when or if divorce does come, it tarnishes your ability to have a healthy relationship in the future, because a lot of people walk around with the drama from the last relationship and bring that into the next relationship. A lot of us don't know how to let it go. Now we have more problems in a new relationship. Now you adding on more because this new person might act differently than the last person. Now here you are, you just all torn and all scarred, and then you still gonna expect someone to take you and take on that baggage. And how did I get 40 and loan? Because some of this stuff we got to heal from before somebody else can come in. It just, the rabbit hole just keep going deeper.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I want to make sure that I am honoring you guys are putting some great comments in the chat, and I want to make sure you guys understand that we're seeing them and we appreciate those comments. Keep them coming, by the way. Definitely continue to add value as you always do, and we greatly appreciate it. So I don't want to go on without acknowledging that we see you. We're just making sure that we continue in the conversation without interruption. Go ahead and hit the like button. Go ahead and make sure that you're sharing. Make sure that you're subscribing as well, because this conversation I think is good and it's continuing to get better as we progress. So next question is, for the sake of this conversation, is another one of the long questions, huh? Um, Okay. Considering the potential ethical implications and societal pressures, how might Maya and Marcus navigate their differences in coping strategies without compromising the integrity of their committed relationship?
You go over there and pray and do your thing. I'm going to the gym.
Tell your friends to shut up. Matter of fact, no, I got a better one. Don't tell your friends everything going on in your home.
Did I miss something? Where the friends come in? I ain't see no friends in there.
Inject, man. You know, we make it up as we go along. He
Oh,
injected
okay.
that.
I'm like,
That's what's up.
I'm gonna take him saying
Just go with
friends
it.
as him putting that under societal pressures. That's how I'm gonna take it. Tell
Thank you, Chris.
society to shut up.
I think you let it be known that, hey, if you need me, I'm here for you. You know, no matter what, and you deal with it how you think is best for you. And you know, I pray for you on this. And if you need me, I'm here.
See, here's the thing. The way I deal with things and the way she deals with things will probably never be the same. It'll probably never be the same. So why not just accept that and quit trying to drag me into what you think I should be doing in that movie you got playing in your head that only stars you, but you play all the characters?
But
Why
when it
why
comes
why can't
to,
we do that?
because naturally, just like if your lady has an issue, it's just innate in men, I will say men, and when I say men, I'm not talking about just males, men, to want to fix it, want to help. Just like it's innate in women to want to nurture her man, want to him to feel better. So there's no, you can only walk around the house so long before somebody say, God, dog, what's wrong with you? So because you want to fix it, because I don't want to keep hearing this. I'm gonna put my headphones on, I'm gonna get on the game or something, or I'm gonna go outside
No,
in the garage, because we want to make things better. And if
no.
we think we can make it better, we gonna say, hey, here it is.
Mm-mm.
Roland, if this was about 10 or
hold on.
20 years ago,
Yeah,
you'd
hold
be
on,
right.
hold on. Yeah, hold on.
I'm
I'm,
not
I'm,
doing that.
I'm with you to a certain degree, but I think on both sides there's an extreme level of pettiness that exists.
Exactly.
And that pettiness, especially if I want to be right, and I'm just using me as an example in this conversation. If I want to be right, I don't care what problem you got to fix it. Or the other side of the coin, if they want to be right, they don't care how we feel. You want to be that way, just feel the way you feel. Go about your business.
That's why I
Ain't trying
said
to
let them know you're here.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm understanding what you're saying, but I think we got to recognize, because that kind of goes back to the question, right? Societal pressures and norms and things of that nature. You got the TikTok back here going on. You got the Instagram. You got the noise. You got the all these other type
And
people.
all of them are telling you to
right.
leave.
Absolutely.
All
so
of them.
I'm understanding what you're saying, and in my core beliefs, I believe that's the majority of the sensible people. But I also hear and seen where sensible people have been swayed as well, and so the pettiness is real.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is why I said this is. I said that in the beginning. This is silly. But I am also speaking as a man who is giving both of them the benefit of the doubt, with them understanding that the most important part of the relationship is the relationship. That's how I'm basing my answer. But
once we said they were young, I'm not giving them that.
But see,
then you got to
I
give
was
them the
young and
pettiness.
married. So I was young and married.
Then you
Yeah.
give in to pettiness,
putting the
and
pettiness
we
in
both fighting each other, and it's stupid. Listen.
I think
Yes,
we add a
yes,
lot to it.
I'm
yes,
just being
they are
difficult,
young,
bro. That's
man.
all. You know
But
that.
I don't know, man.
Because because me, if you got like, this is me. I'm not talking about Marcus and whatever her name is. Me, if I done asked you and you went left and whatever, you ain't taking advice, I don't care. Cool. I'm gonna go in my garage. I'm gonna watch that doggone peacock crawl around everywhere, and I'm gonna sit there in my garage.
You got a peacock in your garage?
Man, there's like 10 peacocks around here.
Oh,
in his neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just strutting in front of his garage. Go ahead, bro.
I'll elaborate more on what I meant, what I was saying. So They need to have a conversation. It was mentioned before. They have to have a conversation, and they have to come to an understanding about what they're going to do to fix the stress. And if it means that she needs to go and spend time in the Word or with her Creator every single day, and he needs to go to the gym and listen to whatever it is that he listens to in order to get that, then that's what they have to do. And to Chris's point, and to what Coach saying is, the relationship has to be the most important. Right now, we need to focus on getting the stress under control. You know what I mean? That's what's important right now. Not how much word you do, or if we do it my way or your way. That's irrelevant right now. Maybe at some point we can have the conversation about, hey, what can we do together with our spiritual life if that's what we want to do? What can we do together when maybe it comes to the gym, or say, hey, look, yeah, I know you over there praying and you got your thing going on and it's working for you. Well, hey, my fitness thing is working for you. So, hey, maybe we can collaborate, like someone said, and share some ideas, and maybe we can go to the gym together sometime, or not, or maybe you can get your own little routine or something. You can see how beneficial me having a certain amount of time for myself to work on my physical body or go to the gym, wherever, is benefiting me. And you can share with me and talk about how praying or meditating is working for you. You know what I mean? So I think they both can benefit each other and the relationship by doing two separate things. I think they both can benefit from that.
And I think
Yeah,
that's
like
So I
it's
have a
different
question.
than
I have,
it.
I have a
But see,
question.
that's like the ideal situation. Like you not forcing how you do things on me. I'm not forcing how I do things on you. But you're more than welcome to join me. That's different than saying this is the right way to do it and we're going to do it this way. You understand
It's
what
the
I'm saying?
compromise.
Right. That and that's why I think this just, I'm sorry, I just think the whole scenario was just petty, but we're talking about two youngsters. So
But
I
the
guess I
reality
gotta
of it is, I
Can I ask a question?
guarantee you, this goes on. I guarantee you, even though it may be petty, it goes on. Because it went on
Yeah.
in my relationship, but it was flipped. But that's another
Can I
story.
ask? Can I
What
ask
you
a
got, Gary?
question, to Coach?
Yeah.
Coach, I got a question. How how religious and churchy is Maya? Is she just getting into this thing?
just
No,
add.
you shaking your head because here's a real thing. Here's a real thing.
These ain't real people.
You've been preaching. No, in this scenario, man, I'm talking. They real tonight. Hush. And you've been preaching longer than I've been living. So listen. So you understand what I'm saying. And it's important because we have taught, those of us who are elders and preachers in the church, we have taught a sense of type of manipulate them to come to church, force them, guilt them to come. Yeah. And it don't sound like that when we say it, but the way that we teach it is we're right and you need to get them right because you're unequally yoked, right? And so it it plays a factor because if she's that religious, that churchy, if he ain't gonna go to church, she ain't coming to the gym, right? She's not gonna meet him halfway because her halfway is coming to church. Because if you come to church, the pastor gonna preach good enough to bring you to the altar, and then we're gonna have a happy marriage because you're doing what I'm doing. And that is I'm not saying that that's a scriptural approach, but that is a churchy approach to how this scenario plays out a lot of times. You know, oh, pastor, come over to the house and have dinner and talk to my husband. We've seen those scenarios play out, you know. So then am I even going to invite her if I feel like I'm constantly under attack by her religion? And you know, because this is true. So when we talk that compromise is it gets hard sometimes because one person feels like the compromise is to lead you to completely give in eventually.
That's not compromise, that's manipulation. And you can tell when you're being manipulated. Like you're not sweet. Listen, man. I'm sorry, man. I refuse to believe. Well, you know what? I take that back. I can't say what I was about to say because I've been that dumb too. I can't really say that. But still, man, what you described as manipulation, trying to convert me to do something because you think I should be doing it, but trying to phrase it in a way that it's a positive for me when it's really you getting what you want. You understand what I'm saying?
I think the first thing should be both of them realize I can't fix you. When you realize I can't fix you, it ain't my job to fix you. So since it ain't my job, I ain't gonna put time at work trying to fix you. I can offer, hey, if you want to do this, cool, I'm here. But if not, you got to figure that thing out. If you want to stew in it, go on and stew in it. Don't stew in it around me because I'm gonna give you some of this. I ain't one of the people like somebody said earlier playing. I ain't playing Mahalia Jackson all through the house trying to save you and all that other crazy mess. I'm not doing that. I'm not walking around while you sleep. I'm taking oil and throwing it over you. The power of Christ compels you and stuff like that. I'm not doing the foolishness.
People used to do that?
And it's used chicken grease at that.
Yeah.
That is disgusting.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
I'm joking with the
He's
chicken grease. I'm
joking.
joking.
But they did have one church
I
where
thought he was serious.
they were giving out old fish grease. They had the little pretty.
Oh my
For real, that was
God.
something
Are
else.
you kidding me?
Yeah, but when you realize that it's not your job to fix another person, but live, I'll tell you, live before them, and then if they need you, then they will come to you. If it gets that bad, they will come to you.
Yeah, and start putting that cup of olive oil up under the bed. Think it's gonna draw the sickness. I'm joking. Listen, as always, this is the bittersweet time of day.
Already?
Because yeah, man, it is that time. And as you guys see,
Wow.
we're enjoying this conversation. But as always, this time of day, we get to the point of saying our final thoughts. And we're going to start off with our young brother down there who is the angry guy that's still learning. And then we're just going to make it do what it do. So enjoy the final thoughts of these fine young men.
Okay. I guess my final thought is the same as it was earlier in the day, earlier in the stream. Like, I know that there are a lot of people that aren't really religious like that, but they believe in something. And that faith in that something gives you a little bit to just go. So I guess my final thought is understand that yes, you have the power to do literally whatever you want, but you have to want it, and you have to want to deal with the stuff that you need to deal with to get out of that rut. You cannot bypass that. You can't. And it's okay to talk to people. It's okay to talk to people. That's my final thought.
If you're a believer and you use the doctrine, I would say, and you have to understand that this right here, just like the title says, the role. So faith and prayer are just roles in the overall mental health aspect. They're huge roles. And I think if they're implemented correctly and with consistency, I think they can add a lot of value to your life. I think if you have a good faith life, I think if you have a good prayer life, I think just having that overall, it can help support your mental health, which will in return allow you to cope with the depression or the darkness or the other situations and different things that you may be going through in your life. So I think it's a combination of all of them coming together to create some sort of something. I'm drawing a blank right now, but I think, like I said, having all of these things coming together does help the overall mental aspect and the mental health of a person to help deal with certain things they may go through in their life.
Man, I would start with John 6:44, and this is for anybody that believes in the scripture, whether from a spiritual or from a religious standpoint or whatever, anybody with the fish grease in their cup holding on, waiting to splash it. Listen, here's what the scripture says. Christ says himself, he says, no man can come unto me except the Father who sent me first draws him. So that's not your job. Your job is to live and do what you do. All right. With that being said, those as well who may be in a relationship with someone who believes or is spiritual or go to church and you don't, your job is not to pull them out. Because the moment someone feels like their life changed because you manipulated it, you're now living in a house with a person that has deep rooted resentment for you because they feel like they may have lost something important to them because of you. If it's the will of the Father to pull them out of that thing, he'll pull them out. Or if it's the will of the Father to pull them into that thing, he'll pull them in. Your job is to learn how to live a cohesive lifestyle with the partner you chose. I know some of us like to blame God for the woman we chose, right? We all think we Adam, but the woman you chose to live with, learn how to live in a cohesive house, in a cohesive relationship. That is what is most important. In the God of the scriptures, that he is going to work it all out for your good. Of course, if you love him and are called according to his purpose. That's what I got. Love you.
I like that. And I guess a lot of choosing, a lot of God choosing happens in the club. But I ain't even going there. The word that you use when you said the Father draws him, that's a fishing term. It's a fishing word because they were fishermen back in the day. And that word draw means to drag because they would take their nets and drag the river. So sometimes you got to let somebody fall on their face. And hey, if they're in that situation, they just got to fall so that you can go deep. And you go deep with your lifestyle. You go deep with your word. You don't have to walk around quoting Bible and stuff like that. You live it. You show how it works in your life. You show how impactful it is to you. And then they can trust in that because if it worked for you, then it may be able to work for me. So communicate, realize you can't fix people, and learn that if I live before a person, they're more apt to respect my life living than me going around telling them what they should do.
See, I'm 100% in agreement with that. I just believe that it is essential that we take the time out to have honest conversations before we decide to get into a lifelong commitment. Have honest conversations up front, lay it on the line, share things with one another. Get to the point to where you spend enough time together where you can have those conversations that lead to the intimacy that everybody expects just to happen naturally. It doesn't happen naturally. It happens over time. And so when you take the time and spend time together, talking to one another, opening up to one another, all of these issues that Maya and Marcus had in their 3 years of being married could have been uncovered, in their 2, 3 year dating scenario, right? Um, and so when we look at it from that perspective, these are things that we should have talked about up front. This is why I constantly share. Don't be so quick to rush to the finish line. Take the time, get to know the person, allow the mask to fall off so you can understand who they really are. Once that mask fall off, now there's decisions to be made. How do we handle disagreement? How do we handle trials and tribulations? All of those things, because within the scope of that, you hear it all the time, cream rises to the top, right? But in the scope of adversity, you will really understand who you're dealing with. And then you have to decide, do I want to deal with that person? If I am dealing with something here within between my two ears that is unresolved and I have not talked about it with anybody, in most cases, I'm sorry, it's going to manifest itself in a way that you probably don't want to, that you probably don't want to deal with, that you probably don't want to do, to your partner or vice versa. So you have to get to the point. You have to open up. You have to talk, and that's kind of like what we're getting at here. So That being said, that's my thoughts on this particular show. I'm glad that you guys found that you guys enjoyed it because we did as well. Again, because I want to see this is what I want to do. I heard this. I want to continue this conversation, right? So for all of you who've already registered on the website, I want you to go to the website and in the member chat because it's like, like Facebook, right? I want you guys to go in there and I'm gonna put in there. I want to understand the difference between compromise and sacrifice. I really want to do a comparison. I want to see how people view it. I want to know, and I'm listening. I'm open to it. I want to hear different perspectives, um, and I just want to see it. So I'm about to post that here in a hot second, just so that you guys know the difference between compromise and sacrifice. I love it. Um, Listen, again, if you haven't subscribed to the website, go to www.totalmindsetshift.com. Once you go there, then that's where we're accepting all of the questions for the next couple of weeks when it comes down to October, November, and December. Again, www.totalmindsetshift.com. Ask your questions over there. That way we'll know who asked what question, and we can actually give the prize to those individuals when we do the draw. Again, listen, another great conversation. I appreciate these men. I like giving them their flowers while they're here. So I want everybody to understand I appreciate you. You add so much value. I just get to sit back and have fun most of the time, and let you guys argue about it. So that said, that said, listen, everybody have a great weekend. I see you guys tomorrow morning. Most of you, I see you tomorrow morning at 10:30. Me and Onita, we're going to talk about being content. So again, 10:30 tomorrow morning, same bat channel. And next week we'll see you guys for the Hearts of Men. Same time, same place, same group of men. Awesome. You guys have a great evening and have a fantastic weekend if I don't see you tomorrow.